It's playoff time, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet once again to another installment of Open Run presented by WARR Media. My name is Gabriel Wilkins, and I'm in the place to be and back beside my running mate as well as co-host Josh Hicks is with me to talk on all the marquee topics making waves throughout the association this week, in addition to being joined by a special guest and a friend of ours who I'm sure you're familiar with if you had the pleasure of following us on WARR Media with the content on the hoop side over the last few years, Bulls Insider with the Bigs, and over at OnTapSports, plus the co-host of the Rebuild a Bull podcast with Matt Gentile, which you can find across all podcasting platforms, and Drew Stevens. How you doing, my man?
Man, after that introduction, you done woke me up, man.
Hey,
I've been
twisted, man.
this whole day, man.
Hey, don't get it twisted, Gabe. Drew a celebrity. All right, he's known around here.
I know he is.
Let's not act like he
I know he is
and everything. You didn't read that super long introduction, all the things he's doing and what he's involved with. That's to tell you right off the bat.
He getting shout outs from Adam Amin on NBC Sports Chicago and stuff, man. We been knowing who you is,
man.
Drew.
Hey, cut it out, man. Cut it out, man. I appreciate the call, though. It made me feel like I'm somebody.
Oh, for sure. What's good with you, Josh?
Oh man, I'm good, man. It feels good to be back on the mic after my little hiatus. So which by the way, Gabe, y'all killed it with me being gone. Y'all did a great job with the show and everything. So I appreciate you. Shout out to
no
Tori.
problem.
And just for keeping this thing going while I've been gone for a little bit, but it feels good to be back.
For sure. It's great to even have you back. And it's great to have Drew back with us as well as a guest on Open Run. And in this week's edition of Open Run, me, Drew, and Josh will take out the time to discuss the state of the organization that lies in the Windy City in the aftermath of a season that was filled with ups and downs, in addition to injuries involving a pair of all-stars that occurred in the opening games of the NBA playoffs over this past weekend, and so much more. However, before we do that, let's show some love to the players who made some landmark accomplishments over the last several days. As part of our Hoops Shout-Out segment, special Hoops shout-outs go out to former Bulls All-Star and Miami Heat forward Jimmy Butler for surpassing LeBron James for second place all time in the franchise's record books for most 35-plus point playoff games, as the former Marquette product constructed a 35-point and 11-assist line to guide Miami to a double-digit win in their series opener against the Bucks out in Milwaukee, in addition to De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk of the Sacramento Kings, as the electric backcourt duo out of Kentucky became only the second pair of teammates in league history to each go for 30-plus points in their playoff debuts, joining Alonzo Mourning and Kendall Gill during their time with the Charlotte Hornets as the only members in that exclusive club, as Fox's 38 points combined with Monk's 32 points proved to be just enough to help the Kings capture their first playoff win in 17 years at home against the defending champion Golden State Warriors in Game 1. So, with all of that being said, what are some things across the basketball world that's either impressed you during the playoffs or caught your eye the most over the last week thus far? I started out with you first, Drew, with you being our guest this week.
I just want to shout out the man, Tyler Hero. And the reason I want to shout him out is because my man broke his hand or a couple of fingers on his shooting hand, had to stay in the game, was running around the court, obviously in immense amount of pain, ended up catching the ball in the corner and still took a three, ended up missing the three. But I just got to give a shout out to him, man. This brother took a three with a broke hand, and you kind of weigh that against the amount of threes that we wish the Chicago Bulls would have taken some of the guys on this team that pass up threes on a regular. I just got to give that man his props, man. I just got to give him his props.
Shooters going to shoot.
Shooters definitely going to shoot.
Even with a broken hand, even if it's they shooting it, they're going to find a way to get it up. And Tyler Hero definitely ain't shy about doing that at all.
Not at all. Not at all. I think outside of that being silly with that part, the talk about how the charge needs to be taken out of the NBA because of what we saw happen this past weekend with Ja Morant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I still don't know where I sit on that. I'll be very interested to get you two guys' opinions. I feel like it may be a little bit of overreaction. Like, how often are we seeing guys having to be sidelined with injuries because of a defender trying to take a charge? I get some of the fervor from wanting to do that or wanting to have a rule change, or at least maybe having that rule looked at to possibly consider it being changed. But I think more so than that, I think refs need to kind of watch out for guys who are sliding over late and already kind of assuming the contact and kind of falling backwards before they even make contact with the offensive player. I think that's where the trouble lies, more so than just the actual charge in and of itself. What you guys think about that? It's just the whole conversation around whether or not charges are good or bad for the game.
Me personally, I don't think you can ban charges. If you do, you're asking for a very sloppy game. I know everybody wants to see physicality in the game, especially when it's become all about space and pace nowadays and guys being skilled in a multitude of areas, but you cannot ban charges. Otherwise, this is going to turn into the Wild Wild West. And this would turn into like rollerball or whatever like that. You don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. And whoever is saying that, I wonder how long have they been watching basketball? Because if you have been watching basketball, you know when you that you have to have that call in the game. Now, there are times where I question what is a charge, because there are charges being called where guys' feet aren't being set, or their body's not fully out in front, or above the half circle in the paint, but still, or the semicircle. But still, like, I don't think you can ban charges.
The league's already soft. You take the charges away, you're gonna make it much worse. It's gonna be much softer. Like, you can't talk about how you want physicality, and yet the charge or taking a charge is one of the most physical ways of exposing or turning the tables for your team, especially when you talk about momentum shifts.
That's true.
Defensively going into the offensive end. Like, that's one of the best ways to get your team going. And quite frankly, it shows how tough you are. If you ain't taking out charges, you a little softy. So
no, that's real. Because
so
most guys won't take them.
Exactly. You a little soft. If you don't want to do that. As someone that went through numerous drills, especially in college, where they prepare you to take charges, that if you don't take a charge, you're gonna get benched because of that. Come on, man. Like, yeah, come on. I'm all for trying to advance the game, but not make it so soft that I can play the game now and not be injured or anything like that. I mean, come on now. You're making the game soft by doing that, and I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, and I think about how much more of an advantage that would give guys like Giannis and Domantas Sabonis, guys who just kind of put their heads down, Jimmy Butler, put their shoulders down, LeBron James at times, and just crash into guys and use their bodies, as battering rams almost, and what type of effect that would have. I know somebody on social media today said something about Giannis would average like 40 or 50 points a game if the charge rule were to be taken out. So I think it's just a knee-jerk reaction to two unfortunate accidents or incidents that happened this past weekend more than anything else.
I agree with you on that assessment, Drew, 100%. What things have stood out to you over the last week, Josh?
Struce. I gotta go with my Napoleon, brother. Come on now.
Yeah, he was on one, wasn't he?
He was on one. He made sure the Bulls went home. He said, let me stroke this mug real quick and show you why you shouldn't have let me go when I was on your team. Good Lord. I was like, Drew knows because he's seen me talk to Max before games. So the last couple of times he was here in Chicago, we talked and chopped it up a little bit. And yeah, you could tell this dude was on a mission because he's settled now. He got the contract. He got paid. He's in Miami. The dude is set for life. You're playing with Jimmy Butler and you got warm weather and palm trees. What else could you do? What else could you want? Right? And it's a winning culture. So now that he actually has the spot in Spoelstra's offense, he's taking full-fledged advantage of it. And he stepped up in a big way against the Bulls in the play-in game to solidify the Heat spot to play the Bucks right now in the playoffs. And it just shows how much of a difference it is from one team to another. Because if he stayed in Chicago, there's no guarantee he would have developed into the player that he is now. Miami is known for developing quality talent. And for Max Strus to be in that situation where they actually understand what it takes to win every season consistently, especially ever since Pat Riley has been taking over the reins, Max is living the life, man. I'm jealous. I would love to be in Miami with palm trees right now where it's 80 degrees. I mean, come on now. But I got to give a shout out to our DePaul guy, man. He's definitely doing his thing. He made his mark for sure. And I don't know what his contract situation is, but I know Jimmy Butler came out and said that dude came out and secured the bag. So if he's up for, free agency coming up anytime soon, I hope the Bulls are watching and they're willing to open up that checkbook, because Lord knows he can help us out with some shooting, knowing dang well we shot last in the league. So we'll see.
It's funny you say that because, I was thinking about that when you brought him up and you was talking about, how he basically shot the Bulls out the building. And that's what he's been known for doing. Like I watched a lot of Matt Strus at DePaul, and he could shoot it with the best of them. But the other night he looked like a lightweight version of Joe Harris. And when you able to shoot like that in the league, you can get yourself a lot of money. And he is a free agent at the end of this season, might I add. He's only on a deal right now for $1.8 million. And you bring up the fact that Miami has been a place where a lot of guys that went undrafted have, become developed and found some sort of success there. He's kind of become like their new Duncan Robinson in a way, minus the money attached to him. And with Miami being in the situation that they're in from a cap standpoint, I'm not too sure that they would be able to re-sign him. So I'm pretty sure he's going to have his fair list of suitors on the open market. For myself, I mean, the things that stood out to me over this weekend was just watching the New York and Cleveland series, game 1. I'm watching a Cavaliers team that during the regular season did exactly what I expected them to do. They took care of business and they finished with a top 4 seed. But I see a team that is very top heavy. I see a team that is in need of a shooter being on the floor. I also see a team that has a veteran on the bench and they didn't play him. A veteran on the bench that's very well experienced, has won multiple championships with multiple organizations. 3, might I add. His name is Danny Green. I think JB Bickerstaff needs to play him immediately. They shot under 30% from beyond the arc. New York did as well. But you have to find advantages this time of year. New York has more depth off the bench. They showed that. They were like plus 20 or better in bench points in game 1. Josh Hart was a big reason as to why that was. Will his status, clear up in time come Wednesday night for game 2 or Tuesday night? It remains to be seen, as he's dealing with an ankle injury and they're saying that he's doubtful right now. But you got to find advantages anywhere that you can. Knicks are also one of the top offensive rebounding teams in the league. They did a damn good job of that in game 1. Guys like Julius Randle getting big-time rebounds, Mitchell Robinson getting big-time rebounds, Isaiah Hartenstein getting huge rebounds late in regulation. They got to find an advantage somewhere. And for a team that took as many three-point shots as they did and weren't hitting any, and it took Donovan Mitchell basically saying, get out my way, I'm going to find a way to create a shot for someone, if not for myself, to get us back in this game. It could have got real ugly in Cleveland. And I think this is the most compelling series in the Eastern Conference that can go 6 or 7 games But if these guys don't trust one another, and Darius Garland, who didn't take a single shot, I believe, in the fourth quarter, like continues that, then they're really going to have a problem.
No, that's real. It's definitely, I will say that for sure the Knicks and the Cavs is one of the most exciting series to pay attention to, especially in the Eastern Conference. And, you know, you talk about what the Knicks are doing, but eventually, and I know we're going to eventually get to this in the show. Jalen Brunson, man, that dude put Illinois on his back and said, "I am he."
Yes, he did.
And literally, you know, really helped, especially in the late game moments, in the final moments of the game, proves the Knicks to seal that game one victory. And this dude took the All-Star snub personally, because there's no way he should not have been an All-Star this year. But hey, that's another layer and icing on the cake, and honestly a difference maker when you talk about Darius Garland and what he brings to the Cavs versus what Jalen Brunson brings to the Knicks. It's levels to this. And with Jalen Brunson knowing that, being in championship environments like that, because going back to his Villanova days, even going to what he did in Dallas, getting them to the Western Conference Finals, he knows what it takes to get what it takes to win. And that's the difference that you saw with that veteran leadership compared to, you know, on the other side of the court with Darius Garland, man. Jalen Brunson, that dude.
Yeah, he been there and done it. And might I add, he did it even in the state, winning a championship with Stevenson High School. You know, he's one of the most decorated players, if not the most decorated player to come out of Lake County.
Mm-hmm.
So he's won at every level with the exception of NBA. But you saw what he did last year, as you alluded to, Josh, in Dallas, leading the Mavs to the Western Conference Finals alongside of Luka Doncic, and even spotting Luka Doncic in the opening round last year, the playoffs, during the first couple of games in which Luka was nursing with an ankle injury. So I was impressed with what I saw from him, and he definitely looked like the more polished guard between the two. But Darius is going to have to come with it in game two. And then another thing they got to do as well is help in one-on-one situations and allow the big guys and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley to do what they do best, and that's protect the paint. There's too many times where Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson were just taking turns one-on-one, isolating, getting to wherever they wanted. And as a result, they controlled most of the game. And that's saying a lot when you consider the fact that Jalen Brunson was in foul trouble early. And the Cavs had a chance to really take advantage of that, and they didn't.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about Cleveland and Bickerstaff's need to possibly give Danny Green some minutes. I mean, he's played kind of sparingly this year, coming off that knee injury. But the last two games, he actually played back-to-back in the regular season. He shot 8 of 19 from three-point land, and that's something they desperately need because Isaac Okoro and Osman, they aren't shooters, man. They're not going to be able to take advantage of the looks that they get playing off of Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So, I mean, what's it going to hurt to throw Danny Green in there just to see what he can do, see what he can give you, spot minutes here and there, you know, and if he is looking like he's got a little groove going, you try to ride him as best you can. My thing is, you guys are right to say that this is one of, if not the most intriguing series in the East. But my thing is, even if Danny Green is able to kind of be what Okoro and Osman aren't, I just wonder if New York's they're just at a level where they're just tougher, and that's kind of going to dominate this series as we see it play out. You know, a Tom Thibodeau type team. They're playing 48 minutes of intensity. You know, granted, Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell have playoff experience. I think Garland played in some playing games last season.
Last season he did. Yeah, they was in the play-in round where they lost to Atlanta and Brooklyn.
Yeah, but man, it's a different animal going up against the New York Knicks, man. As much as, you know, us being from Chicago, some of us may rag on the Knicks and we want to see the Bulls do better than them. But that's a hard-nosed team over there, man. And there was one possession where Julius Randle just he just pushed Evan Mobley all up under the basket to grab a late offensive rebound, if I'm not mistaken, in the game on Sunday. So
sure did.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to make up for that lack of experience or be able to match that level of physicality that New York brings to the table game in and game out over the course of this 7-game series.
That's a great point. I don't disagree with it at all. But when you have a guy like Donovan Mitchell out there who's been in the playoffs and boasts, a top 10 average scoring wise in playoff history, I do expect him to have a puncher's chance in every game because of him. However, it's just unfortunate that for the second stop in his career that he has to carry such a significant load. And even though I believe that Darius Garland will step up and rise to the occasion and be more aggressive in game 2, they're going to need Donovan to attack each and every single night. And he can't just pick and choose his spots, but just going forward long-term with this group, they have to supply this core that they have with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley with shooters in order for it to truly work. And they're on borrowed time because I believe Donovan's contract expires about a couple of years from now. After this season, he only has 2 more years left on that deal. So Kobe Altman has work to do. I'm interested to see how far this group can go. I do believe that they still have a shot, but after looking at game 1 and seeing how much depth this Knicks roster has, even without Josh Hart in game 2, you think about what Obi Toppin did in game 1 in the third quarter. He provided them with 9 buckets and 9 points and was doing a great job of running the floor, getting rebounds, and even hit a catch and shoot look generated by Jalen Brunson off of a double team. So when I see them, and not to even mention Quentin Grimes, who hit over 170 triples this season. I think they're a deeper team. In New York, I feel like throughout this season has been Cleveland's kryptonite in a manner in which Cleveland has been Boston's kryptonite. And for some odd reason, they're not able to figure them out. But that's why this matchup is intriguing to me. Plus, Cleveland's fans did a hell of a job of showing up as well at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse for the first time for a playoff game in 5 years. I just like their crowd, man. They got you right. They ain't got no choice. But I just love their crowd, man. They come with it. I have to give these Midwest cities besides Chicago some love and credit, especially when they bolstering strong rosters.
Most definitely.
Cleveland ain't Miami, though. We know that.
Oh, for sure.
And Cleveland ain't Cleveland right now because Bron ain't coming back, at least not yet. So you need, they ain't got no choice but to show up. This is the first time they're gonna make the playoffs without LeBron since he's been there. Please.
First time in the playoffs without LeBron in 25 years, too.
Right.
Wow.
Yep. But I want to get right into it about the franchise that we know as the Chicago Bulls. They posted a 40-42 record during the regular season, which was good for 10th best in the Eastern Conference. Barely made the play-in, found a way to overcome a double-digit deficit against the Toronto Raptors to advance into a winner-take-all game against the Miami Heat for the 8th and final seed in the Eastern Conference. However, they fell short. Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White, they're both set to enter the free agency market this summer. I want to start out with you first, Drew, and ask you. I know you and Josh been at the United Center for most of the season. What went wrong this year, man?
That's a loaded question, man.
I know it is. I know it is.
I think what went wrong this year, I mean, you could point to the offseason before, the trade deadline before that. It's not just about what went down this particular season. Like there's trickle effects that have happened from indecision or just inaction, I should say, from the front office. And we saw it kind of play out this season with the Bulls roster just not being up to par with those of the other contenders around the league. Not enough guys that can do multiple things, so you're always subbing to get something, but you're leaving something on the bench in spite of or because of, as well as Kobe White played, Billy Donovan wanted to stick to his guns and stick to his vets in terms of the starters, especially after the post All-Star break with Alex Caruso and Patrick Beverly. Zach LaVine coming off his scope in the offseason and kind of getting his legs under him. DeMar DeRozan's body starting to break down just a little bit with that quad and that hip toward the later stages of the season. Again, Josh and the other ladies and gentlemen that covered this team and did a wonderful job doing it this season. Pressed AK to talk about the three-point shooting. That's a big thing that they need to figure out how they're going to shore that up. But they're in the pinch, man. They're in the pickle in terms of how they're going to be able to do that with so little wiggle room in terms of cap space and the fact that there's no way in hell that the Reinsdorfs are going to sign off on going into the luxury tax for a team that was the 10th best in the Eastern Conference and, had to sweat it out just to try to get into the playoffs. So a lot of questions still need to be answered. We're going to see where this thing goes, but from my viewpoint, it's not looking terribly optimistic right about now.
I can believe you when you say you don't expect the Reinsdorfs to go over the luxury tax. They've only done it once in the history of the franchise. However, when you got Arturas Karnisovas out here saying that a rebuild is not on our minds and that he aspires to re-sign Vucevic, White, as well as Ayo Dosunmu, who's also going to hit the free agency market. It seems like ownership in the front office is not on the same page. But I'm going to turn it to you, Josh. What you think went wrong this season? I could name a myriad of things personally, but like I said, y'all was there. Y'all was feeding me all the inside access and stuff. And that's why I'm glad I got y'all two on this week to talk about it.
Man, Drew said so much. I just don't know if I can follow up with that. But what I will say from my side of things is this. The offense sucked. That's just one of the biggest things that boiled down to. The offense sucked. This is a new offense that Billy Donovan put in compared to last season. And this offense was supposed to be very random, taking the load off of DeMar, spread the wealth, everyone eats. And the reality is, everybody didn't eat. There's a lot of starving Negroes on this team. And some of it was self-inflicted because as much as you have the talent, there is no way the Bulls should have been average offensively or below average offensively. To my surprise, especially post All-Star break, we were the best defense in the league. So defense was actually improved over the season, which was the Bulls' kryptonite or Achilles heel last season. But this offense does not work. This, as currently listed now, it doesn't work because of two things. You have no three-point shooting, and you have very low IQ. They don't have an identity offensively. Even though, to be quite honest with you, if they sign Vooch back, I think that's a plus for them because you're not going to replace him. You have no one else to get that can replace him. But if you bring him back, for God's sake, use him right. Like, use him right. He is best in the post, starting off in the post, and you play through him offensively. He doesn't have to score 30 points a game. He doesn't have to do all this aggressive work. But at the end of the day, if you play through him, the Bulls have shown that when you do that, good things happen. It can lead to Zach and DeMar going off. It can lead to Kobe White doing his thing. If Alex Caruso can hit an open three, lets him hit open three. It actually works. But this offense went from starting off with that to halfway through the game. Okay, it's a Zach and DeMar show. And it's like that, even though as great of a duo they can be and have proven over their tenure here so far, that duo can actually work, it does not equate to winning basketball. There's other components that have to go with it. And Vooch is one of the biggest components. They did not use him right this year. And you can tell in the numbers and the inconsistency throughout the season. And the Bulls continue to talk about the theme inconsistency all year long. That's all you heard is inconsistencies. When you can't play 48 minutes of basketball, that's more than just the players. That's effort, and that's the coaching staff as well. It's a full, everybody got to get blamed for that. And I feel like when you looked at that end of the season presser, Arturas never necessarily said he held people accountable, but also he didn't. Because even though he held, the players accountable, he said this is unacceptable and everything, there's someone sitting right next to you that is the leader and the coach of this team that you gave a secret extension to. And he didn't deliver. So where's the accountability on Billy that you got sitting right next to you looking all happy and smiling throughout the whole press conference? It's because Drew's talking about disconnect. There's a disconnect somewhere. There's no reason how Billy Donovan could lead a team to the playoffs and the same exact roster with 2 additional players goes downhill completely the next season, like completely opposite. There's a problem with that. So on top of what Drew has said, yes, a lot of things that issues that took place. But for sure, I know for sure for me, offensively, it was a bust. Humpty Dumpty fell off that wall and cracked. Like, that's how bad their offense was. And they have to find a way, if they're going to keep the core, which even though they said they're going to evaluate all the options, they made it very, very clear, most likely they're going to keep the core. They keep that core. Okay, cool. It's not a bad core. I'm not going to lie. It's not a bad core. But good Lord, you better find the right offense and the right players and resources to build around those guys. Because as of right now, we look like a bust. We look like a sorry busted franchise.
And not only go ahead, Drew. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say to piggyback off with part of what Josh was saying in terms of using Nikola Vucevic right, and kind of having the offense flow through him a little bit more. I think that in order to do that, and I've said this before, and I've said this, during the season, midway through the season, I think that they really should have explored trying to trade DeMar DeRozan before the trade deadline, when his value was higher. I think they still need to explore that, even though he's going into the last year of his deal. I don't know what other teams' cap situations are looking like, or who would be willing to take on DeMar DeRozan, because he's great. He's great for Chicago, been great for the Bulls. God bless what he was able to do these last 2 seasons, especially last year with all the memories he gave us. But he, pardon the phrase, but he throws a monkey wrench into your offense if you're trying to be more of a modern day team, a modern day offense.
Yeah.
So much of it is going to tilt toward mid-range basketball. And I just think if this core is part of this core is going to remain, it needs to be Zach and Vooch and trying to build around those two and supplement what those two guys do. And you got to try to find a different home for DeRozan and hopefully get back some sort of value, maybe a pick, maybe a shooter, maybe a rim protector, something. Obviously, you're probably not going to get equal value, but you gotta find something worthwhile in order to get this thing moving forward from where it is now. The Bulls were 34-48 between last season's All-Star break and this season's All-Star break. With Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic in lineup this season, they were only 36-34, 2 games above 500. That's not going to cut it. to piggyback further on some of the things that Josh said, I like Billy Donovan. I really do. I think a lot of that has to do with being able to interview him in person, kind of seeing how he interacts with people. I thought it was not fair for him to be up there with Arturis on Saturday, given the fact that he's taking bullets for Arturis and Mark Eversley after every game, after every practice, throughout this whole entire season. And he's done so without blinking, answering everybody's questions to the best of his ability, even though, he kind of talks around them sometimes. But what else is he going to do? One of my bigger faults with him, and maybe this also points to what hasn't happened above him in terms of the decision making and the roster building, is how is it that you have three of the most skilled players at their positions in the NBA, but your offense just is kind of stuck in the mud? You got to be able to figure something out. And again, some of that goes to three-point shooting. I think some of it too goes to the fact that you can say IQ. You can also say that guys just, there's not a whole lot of movement, man. Like players playing off of those two guys, cut. I don't know how many times I've been watched Bulls games and was just like, cut, move, screen, something. When they're playing zone, flash in the middle, something.
I know what you're talking about.
Don't just stand around. You gotta do something. And again, that's another part of the reason why DeMar DeRozan is a little bit of an ill fit, because if he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's not really cutting. He's kind of just standing. So that's just some things you're gonna have to clean up. It's not gonna be easy for them, I don't think, to move off of DeRozan, but I think it is something that they need to explore.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Drew, 100%. And that's something that I've been thinking about as early as around Christmas time of last year, going into New Year's. I posed that question to a lot of Bulls fans on Twitter, and I got a lot of blowback for it, especially when it was obvious that this team was in dire need of a point guard in the wake of the injury of Lonzo Ball, whose status we still don't know in regards to when is he going to be able to return to the court. However, we do know that he's going to miss the rest of not only this year, but the entire 2023-24 season based off of what's been reported, barring some health miracle, what have you. So when I look at this situation, it definitely went down post All-Star break. And the numbers that you brought up, Drew, when you say that they're 36 and 34 post All-Star break with LaVine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, that's very telling, especially when you consider the fact that they were the top seed in the Eastern Conference in the middle of January last year, prior to Lonzo Ball's injury.
Lonzo Ball's a scary situation because
it is.
Because this is just what I've gauged from the front office. They're praying for a Lonzo Ball miracle. Because, yeah, the reports have been out saying that he's pretty much done for next year after this, surgery he just had. And they said, obviously, PR moves. We don't know exactly when he'll return. We don't know that information yet, but we do have confidence that he'll be coming back. Okay, cool. That's what he said at the end of the season presser. That's what AK said. So I said, okay, cool. What are you going to do about the point guard situation, though, considering that Lonzo Ball, if he were to come back, it's probably not till the second half of the season? Because this is the reality. Even if he was to come back, he's like I just said, he's probably not going to come back to the second half of the season, and he's not going to be the same Lonzo Ball. You're talking about 3 surgeries in 3 years and not playing basketball for 2 straight, going on 3. And you think he's going to be the same exact Lonzo Ball that we saw prior to him getting hurt? No, that's not going to happen right away. That's going to take time. And I think he'll be okay because most of his skill set is predicated on, his vision, being able to facilitate and pass the ball and getting guys in the right position, not predicated always on speed and agility. So I think he'll be okay. in the long run. But Lonzo Ball's not walking through this door anytime soon, man. The dude is still in rehab at his crib. I don't even know which one he's at. Is he in LA or is he here? I don't even know which one he's at. But he's not on a court. So if he's not on a court, and you know how bad this point guard position is to a point where you not even let Kobe White be the point guard. Someone who actually played it for this team and grown into that position. You had to get a veteran to come in. What makes you think that if you were to resign Kobe White back, you're not going to look at any other point guard situation? You're going to just expect him to be the point guard? Now, granted, Kobe White has grown. He is still growing, and he is improving. And I do think he can be a starting point guard in this league, and that's what he wants to do. However, there's still a gap between the point guard position as a whole and what the Bulls expect that point guard position to be. Because if you put Kobe White in there, to be honest, you're gonna get like a Kyrie Irving-esque type of point guard. Someone that's gonna score the ball first. Someone that's not gonna facilitate but can facilitate. That's where Kobe's game is best. But Billy Donovan's offense isn't predicated on a point guard scoring 20 points a game. It's predicated on setting the team up so you can have shooters that can shoot the ball and get Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Vucevic where they need the ball best. That's how their offense is set up. So Patrick Beverley kind of made an impact because you don't need him to score 20 points a game. You just need him to shoot a three and play good defense. Are you going to bring him back? You didn't specify that. Are you going to look at someone that plays similarly to help bring that input for that position? Because that equated to winning basketball. When Patrick Beverley got here, we was above 500. And actually climbed our way to actually get into the play-in when that was non-existent at one point.
They're not a play-in team without him, if you ask me.
Straight up.
That was the biggest acquisition they made. And I truly believe that, as you indicated when we talked about the buyout market several weeks ago, Josh, how they felt about this team. And you said it in your own words like this. You said they soft as Charmin tissue. Which they are. I'm not, you wasn't sugarcoating it. That's how I feel as well. And I feel like Patrick Beverley was the one guy that held these guys accountable. He talked about it in press conferences that I listened to about instilling confidence in the young players repeatedly, time and time again. And he did that not only with his vocal presence, but he also did it with his play. He was really the igniter. And I don't know if he comes back or not. But if he doesn't, with the way in which this roster is currently constructed, then they really gonna have a bunch of problems. And you don't have a point guard. And if I'm just gonna be straight up, if I was in Nikola Vucevic camp, I would tell him not to even come back to Chicago. And the reason why is because you're in your early 30s. I understand you trying to secure the bag and everything, but you've been the man before. You was the man in Orlando. You know what I'm saying? You was an all-NBA talent in Orlando. You was an all-star. You at the point of your career where it's time to start playing for championships, bro. You have a skill set that's serviceable to teams that are in the hunt and are in dire need of a big man that can stretch the floor, a big that can also post and take advantage of smaller sized wings and such in the paint when teams want to go small. Use your skill set somewhere else. But I want to ask you guys this. It's been 3 years and 4 days since Arturas Karnisovas was named the executive VP of basketball operations for the Bulls. How would you all assess his tenure thus far? And what do you believe must be done by him and Mark Eversley, the general manager, to rebound from a year in which the Bulls couldn't replicate their success from a season ago in the Eastern Conference?
Man, I guess I'll answer that like this. You know, when they first started making these moves and acquiring DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, the Nikola Vucevic trade that preceded all of that, it was so much goodwill that they had built up just because they were doing things. They were pushing forward. They were going for it. And then all of a sudden just stopped. It just stopped. It's like they recovered a fumble, ran it back to the goal line and just stopped. Didn't cross the plane. And I don't know if that's because there's a message from the front office that they're only going to allow them to spend but so much money, or go into that luxury tax, or if they really did, or I should say, if they really didn't know what was going on with Lonzo Ball and the extent of the injury that he suffered. But that's been the most disappointing thing. Like, you make these moves, you start to build this roster, and the vision that they had for this roster with Lonzo Ball, we saw it. Like, it looked pretty good. Granted, our partner Eugene McIntosh with the Bigs, he likes to say that they caught lightning in the bottle those first 35 games. Whether or not they did, it looked a certain way. I was drunk off the juice. Like, I really thought that they had something good going had they been able to stay healthy. But now the honeymoon is over. And they just have to figure out like how they can continue to improve this thing. If they're not going to rebuild, okay, you're not going to rebuild. So what else can you do to improve this roster? How can you make Zach LaVine a better player? How can you develop Patrick Williams and Dalen Terry? Ayo Dosunmu, if you choose to re-sign him. What can you do to get this team from the ranks of the mediocre? That was one of the big things he said in his introductory press conference, was just talking about how he doesn't want to settle for mediocrity. Well, they've been mediocre since Lonzo Ball hurt himself. How many months ago was that? It's time for these guys to dig their heels in and deliver on the promises that they made. Granted, injuries are injuries. You can't really account for those, but you can adjust to them. What's the next step?
Man, I'll say it like, I like your illustration, Drew. You got some good illustrations. I like that. I'm gonna add one to it. It's like you got two options to date a girl. One who's extraordinary, and you got one that's average. But the average one gives you more time. The extraordinary may not give you as much time as you want, but she's extraordinary, so she can make you better. You go with the average one because you get comfortable and you want more time with her. But you don't get as far because the extraordinary one isn't going to push you to the level where you can go. Bulls got comfortable, bro. They got comfortable. They made the playoffs. They flipped the roster around. They got the coach they wanted. They brought in a reinforcement that they felt could really run this team, and which at the time were the best moves in a very long time that the Bulls have made. So they are justifiable. And they, like you said, our boy Gino, they caught lightning in the bottle and did so well that when you finally get Billy Donovan some quality talent with some good players, they made the playoffs. Since we made the playoffs, our job is done. We ain't made the playoffs in years.
Let's brought the fans back.
We brought the fans back and everything. So, Billy, let's make sure you're here long term. We'll get you paid real quick. Don't tell nobody, though. But we're going to get this done. And then, we're going to just let this thing ride. We're going to let this thing ride. Because obviously Lonzo Ball, I think, played a big role in this as well. Because when you talk about how you have one surgery and you think it's supposed to be good and you keep finding more and more things that are wrong with it, that's a problem. That's something that can throw off your rhythm. So I get that. However, you knew he's going to be out this past season all year round. I know he's going to be gone this year all year round. That on top of everything else that you claimed, we're going to ride this thing out. We're going to bring continuity into this. That's a safe way of saying, I ain't got to do jack. Let's see how this plays out. Because I did my job. Even though we're looking for championships, you got to get to the playoffs first. I brought y'all that. So what's good? I'm getting paid well, and I still get my steak medium well done with my entree while I'm watching y'all do y'all thing on the court. 5-star. I'm good. And that is the problem when you talk about AK and like Drew said, talking about mediocrity. But one of the biggest components to mediocrity is insanity. You're doing the same thing and expecting different results. The past couple of years, the Bulls have been doing the same things, expecting different results. And when you apply insanity correlates with complacency. So when you come with complacency, you can't sit here and say, oh, we don't accept mediocrity. Then you get successful. And then you come to the podium in the beginning of this season and say, oh, we made it the first round, but we really want to go to the second round. We got to go past the first round because otherwise it's a failed season. And you had ample opportunity to fill in the holes you need to fill in, retool the roster you need to retool it, to get past the first round and get to the second round of the playoffs, and you don't take advantage of any of those opportunities. The only opportunity you take is Patrick Beverley because you literally have no choice. Like, the fire was so lit that if you didn't bring Patrick Beverley, you just adding more gas to it. You would have burned the building down. At least Patrick Beverley, brought the fire extinguisher. So it's amazing to me how you just get a little bit of a taste of success and you become complacent with what that looks like. And for a storied franchise like the Bulls, who is known for winning championship after championship after championship, literally doing it twice, 2 3-peats, you should know what the standard of winning basketball should be when you step into the Madhouse on Madison on the west side of Chicago. You should know. And they acting like they really don't know what that looks like as of now, because they haven't been as aggressive as they used to be, because they got complacent with the average girl that really should have been the side chick.
You should know, but I got bad news for you, Josh. Most people don't. Most folks who are under the age of, I would say, 25, they don't know Michael Jordan for real. They only know him for his shoes. I've been saying this. I stress the importance of them continuing to build on what they did in the summer of 2021 in free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Signing DeMar DeRozan, signing Alex Caruso, signing Lonzo Ball. That was the best offseason I had seen the Bulls have, I would say, within the last 20 plus years, even including the offseason in which they signed Carlos Boozer in free agency. It was a much better offseason. Mm-hmm. However, you have to continuously do that if you want to build a winner, and you don't want to be mired in mediocrity. Because while you were mired in mediocrity, guess what? Cleveland Cavaliers, a young team with tremendous promise, who almost made their way into the playoffs a season ago in the play-in round, they got better. They went for it. They got Donovan Mitchell. Mm-hmm. And they said, the hell with the draft picks. We need this star. We need a guy who's been there and done that. And hopefully he can lead us to the promised land as we seek to make life more navigatable in the wake of LeBron James's second departure from the franchise. You also had a team in the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo, who damn well ain't about to rest on their laurels, being a small market franchise. And without their superstar, as we saw this past weekend, life looks a lot different. And we're going to get into that later on in the show. But I'm going to ask y'all real quick. If you don't believe it's time to close the door just yet on the current era of Bulls basketball, then what major splash deal do you think must occur in order to save whatever is left of it? Because the only big move I can see them doing is probably for OG Anunoby, straight up. But then again, you don't have the draft capital. And that's what makes this situation so perplexing. And that's why I do agree with you, Drew. They are going to have to explore trading DeMar DeRozan, because you got to get some draft capital. Even if you don't get a quality player back, you have to get something. Your last lottery pick was Patrick Williams in 2020. That was AK's first pick with the franchise.
Yeah, man, Gabe. I think in terms of the biggest splash they can make is trading Zach LaVine. But if you trade Zach LaVine, you're pretty much settling for a rebuild because
That's
I
true.
don't I don't know why you would keep DeMar and then try to maybe sign Vucevic and or extend DeMar but he in my mind would give you the biggest return, picks, players. I'm a Levine fan, so that's not something I want to see them do. Like I'd rather that they look into ways of surrounding him with better players. I'm not saying he's number one. That's not what I'm saying. I'm thinking that because of the way his game is, like he so fits the way the game is played nowadays. And in another year or two, if you're able to happen upon another disgruntled star who you can pair with him, a guy who is a bona fide scorer and just as good of an off-ball scorer, catch and shoot, whatever the case may be, you pair those two guys together, maybe you're really talking about something. But outside of that, just seeing what you can get for DeMar DeRozan, and I'm not sure what that is really going to be because I feel like the teams that have the cap space are the teams who are still kind of building towards something and still years away from really contending for a championship. And why would you trade for DeMar DeRozan in that case? But it's kind of a position that they're in, man. There are no easy outs right now, especially if they're not talking about rebuilding.
I name a team real quick before I pass it over to Josh that I think could actually use DeMar DeRozan. That's Memphis. Memphis. And the reason why I say Memphis is because they have a shitload of draft picks that they're going to have to get off at some point, and they're not going to use them all. And they're in a window of contention in the Western Conference. There are going to be a lot of trades made this summer, and I'll tell you why. There are no marquee free agents really out there besides Kyrie Irving and James Harden, who are at this stage in their careers, even though they're marquee stars and they're superstars in their own right, it's not like it was several years ago. The market's not hot. So though outside of those two guys and maybe Chris Middleton, this is a dead market because most guys who could have made the free agency market booming a couple years ago decided in the wake of the pandemic to take their max dollars where they could and when they could. And I don't blame them because at the time, nobody knew what the state of the league was going to be, let alone the world and their family. So, kudos to them. But what's your thoughts on all this, Josh, before we wrap it up and move on to the next topic?
Drew mentioned the perfect person to pair along Zach LaVine. This came to my mind. And mind you, I highly doubt it happens. So don't sit here and quote me and say this is going to happen because I really don't think it will. May not have any weight. You want to talk about a potential disgruntled star. There is someone over there on the East Coast that's playing in Boston next to Jaylen.
You got to bring up his name. I know you talking about.
Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
Who has not been shy in letting people know, I got some issues here. I'm not saying we can trade DeMar for him because he is coming up on a contract year, trying to get an extension and everything. But good Lord, we talk about what Jaylen Brown can do. What Brown can do for you. How about you ship yourself to the Shy? Please come to the Windy City. And you put him with Zach LaVine? Now you're going somewhere. Like now you're moving towards something. So that's just wishful thinking. But in all actuality, combined with the reality of what the Bulls are in right now, like you say, there's nothing much the Bulls really can do, except you open up that checkbook and say, Reinsdorf, Mike, Jerry, I don't care which one. This is what I need y'all to know. We can bring the core back, and I believe the core can work. But good Lord, we need to put some shooting in this team. I can't be sitting here shooting dead last in every category that is equating to the three-point line. That can't happen anymore. We need to catch up. And I can't catch up unless you're willing to tell me to open up a blank check. If you give me that confirmation, let's get some shooters to bring us back to where we need to be. And there's going to be some shooters in this market. So I think they should, that's the best route for them to go to. Because ain't no need of filling all the other boards when you can't catch up when you're playing twos all game and everybody else is playing threes. There's no point. So you need to catch up with the times first. And as much as, we love DeMar DeRozan in the offense, this offense we've seen with him the past couple of years is not thriving in the way that we thought it can, even though it is factual, numbers-wise, that he can work with the Zach LaVine. But if you want the best out of this team, look, you got to get some shooters. If you're going to keep DeMar DeRozan, you better get some three-point shooters. And you better open up a blank check for all the shooters. If Duncan Robinson could be on the Miami Heat, not play a minute, and to get paid $95 million over a few years, somebody better be, I'm opening the book for something like that for anyone too, because clearly we don't have it, and we need that moving forward if we want to put ourselves in a better position to thrive. And there's, like you said, Gabe, the free agent market's already dry from a high profile player perspective. So if you're not gonna make no crazy trades, bro, you better get the holes that you can fill in, which is getting me some shooters.
Yeah, because you can't win in the modern day NBA without them at all.
Exactly.
And you also gonna have to get an athletic big man in the mix, a big man that can rebound, a big man that can protect the rim. No disrespect to Dalen Terry, but I remember me and Drew had a conversation on draft night with Cal, and I talked about my reactions to that pick. I said it's a typical Bulls pick. They asked me who did I think they should have drafted. I said Marjon Beauchamp. Mark Williams was a guy that they could have had, even though he went above to Charlotte, like a few spots above. Another guy they could have had is in the running for the Rookie of the Year, Walker Kessler. I was very high on him. He's making a lot of teams look stupid, including the Minnesota Timberwolves, for trading him. But that's neither here nor there. I'll move on. NBA playoffs. Giannis exited action after playing 11 minutes against the Heat with a lower back contusion in Game 1. Ja Morant's status is in jeopardy after suffering a hand injury midway through the fourth quarter versus the Lakers in the Grizzlies' first round opener. Memphis was outscored 23-11 in the wake of Morant's injury, with 15 of those Lakers' 23 points coming in clutch minutes to close out Game 1 with a win. Milwaukee trailed by 8 at the time of Antetokounmpo's departure, but they never truly recovered in spite of cutting it to within 3 during the third quarter. Bucks are optimistic that Antetokounmpo will be available to play in Game 2 on Wednesday night, per Shams Charania of The Athletic. Woj from ESPN states that there is significant doubt Ja Morant plays in Game 2 out in Memphis, set to go down on Wednesday night as well. Which team between the Bucks and Grizzlies do you believe will be impacted the most by the following injuries to their stars, should both of them miss significant time in the first round?
It's got to be Memphis, man. It has to be Memphis. I know they have experience playing without Ja, and they have your favorite backup point guard's favorite backup point guard, and Tyus Jones, it seems like that dude, anytime you talk about backup PGs, his name comes up first. But not having such a dynamic player as Ja Morant, their engine for as well as Jaren Jackson has played on the offensive end as well as the defensive end, it's only so far you're going to be able to get, man, with that young man out of the lineup, as opposed to the Bucks, who have more of a system in place. They're a battle-tested team, championship medal. I know Chris Middleton is still kind of finding his rhythm, been in and out of the lineup a lot this year. They're also a team that has a little bit of experience playing without Giannis, not quite as much. But I just think that going up against a Heat team that's still pretty small, still struggles to find offense in the half court, and will continue to do so, presumably without one of their key shot creators, shot makers, and Tyler Hero. I think that of those two injuries is going to affect Memphis much more having potentially lost John Morant than the Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Because when you talk about the impact that Ja has and how this offense really goes, it's eerily similar to a guy that unfortunately Chicago has so much familiarity with when it comes to derailment of body issues, and that is Derrick Rose. The Bulls were not the same when Derrick Rose went down. They just weren't. And they suffered mightily. Didn't even get past the first round. And Memphis, even though they know how to play without Ja, playoffs is a different type of beast when you talk about the half-court offense, physicality, attention to detail, scouting reports. And let's be very serious. Even though the Lakers are not the Lakers of old, you still got LeBron James on that roster. That's one of the smartest brothers ever to play the game.
Forget LeBron James, he's on their roster.
Yeah, and AD, you're right. And
he was shooting that thing yesterday, wasn't he?
Boy, AR-15 was sniping the mugs, right? So with AR-15 doing this thing, obviously, you know, and if AD was able, it can stay healthy, that's a problem for Memphis. And I think an even more problem is the fact that the Lakers have guard play for every situation. Like when you think about D'Angelo Russell, he brings you the offensive side of things. But you got Dennis Schroeder coming off the bench. His defense on Ja was pretty darn good. And it really helped the Lakers propel them in the right position moving forward defensively. And when they're locked in like that, Memphis really doesn't have much of a chance. At least with Milwaukee, like you said, they've been battle tested. They at least have Chris Middleton, but the key for them, they got Jrue Holiday. And Jrue Holiday has been on a tear on both ends of the floor all season long as an all-star. As long as you got that component in today's NBA where it is dominated by guard play, I think they'll be okay. But yeah, Memphis ain't gonna be the same. That rough riders movement is done when Ja ain't on the court like that. And they're gonna, and I think if they're not careful, you know, they're really gonna feel it against this Lakers team, man. So I think Ja's injury is gonna be the most significant when you talk about impact of play.
This is a tough one for me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very tough one for me because even though the Bucks are 11-8 in games in which Giannis has missed this season, and that's a better winning percentage than the Miami Heat put together all season long, they're 32-33 in games in which Giannis has sat in the Mike Budenholzer era. So when you put this into full context and perspective, I have to say Milwaukee, especially when Chris Middleton has shown an inconsistency to stay healthy over the last few years and has dealt with injury issues of his own. We didn't really even know much about his status for real coming into the playoffs because he's been in and out of the lineup so much. And now we're asking Chris Middleton, a guy who's had knee issues, wrist issues over the last year and a half, in his 30s, to be the guy on top of being the guy who is going to be responsible most of the time for checking Jimmy Butler. That's a hell of a responsibility. And you add that into the facet of Jrue Holiday having to step up even more, a role that he's been very excellent in this season, might I add, and done so well. Like that's tough. It's very tough. And just looking at the way that Milwaukee looked when Giannis was out of the game yesterday, even when they cut that lead to 3, Miami dominated. That series becomes completely different to me if Giannis misses an extended period of time. At least in Memphis, I know that I have a backup point guard at Tyus Jones that can handle the load in the absence of Ja. But let's be real, Memphis had a tough uphill battle anyway going in with Ja. This was always going to be a tricky series with the Lakers. If you'd have told me that the Miami Heat would have a chance against the Milwaukee Bucks, I'd have laughed at you going into yesterday's matchup. I'd have laughed at you. I didn't think they stood a chance. Their half-court offense has been abysmal to watch all season. And that still remains to be an issue. But with Giannis out of the picture, man, shit get interesting. It gets very interesting. It becomes a watchable series. Something that I didn't expect. So I would have to say it's Milwaukee, although I understand you guys' case in regards to Memphis, who already had an uphill battle with the Lakers, but with there being significant doubt, according to Woj, rather, that Morant plays in game 2, if they go down 2-0, going back to LA, they're in trouble. And it's my hope that the Lakers don't continue to play small, because that hurt them yesterday big time. And it almost cost them the game until Ja Morant got hurt and they went on that run in crunch time to seal the deal.
No, that's a very valid point. I just think about what injury could be that you can come back from quicker and not be so impactful to your game. When I think about that and the way to describe Giannis's back, considering that he might just have spasms, there's no negative, his X-rays were clear and everything. I just look at it, he just got a sore back. You get it together, he'll be okay. He'll be back to playing his strength of the game, which is going downhill every possession and either scoring, dominating, or creating for others. That is not, I don't think that's going to be significantly taken away from Giannis. Where with Ja, you're talking about a sprained hand or wrist, that affects his speed up and down the court. When it comes to dribbling the ball, that affects how he's able to normally play, which is very much with that opposite hand, especially when he dribbles, his little in and out dribbles coming off the screens and he has to shift it to the left, or he does an over the court pass. It makes his game much more limited. And it's not like he's always been the best shooter, and it's not like he's always been the best. I mean, he's always been a good finisher, but he hasn't been the best shooter. And on top of that, too, the way his aggressive play is coming off those screens, he goes full speeds and he comes into you, and you don't know if he's gonna land right or not. Anyways, you already heard his hand like that. I can't see Ja. He's like Russell Westbrook. You can't watch him and just expect him to play a different way. He's used to playing one way and one way alone, and that's all you're gonna get from him. So if Ja Morant doesn't change that, that could affect a lot more things as well on his body. Because that's always been a fear of Ja. Is he going to learn to not sometimes play so recklessly and more under control because of the fact that he uses so much of his athleticism and speed and aggression that combines with his skill set? And we know that happened obviously with Derrick Rose in the way that it did. Obviously I don't wish that for Ja, but maybe this hand injury could have been a wake-up call too for some of that. And I don't know if he's going to take note of it.
I don't think he will take note of it. Like you said, that's the only way he know how to play. And when they can't stop you from getting to the rim, which no one in the league can, I don't care what the scouting report tells you, no one can really stop him getting to the rim. I mean, it's going to be a tough injury too. And then you got to think about it, like with that wrist, when he fall again, you know how he going to land, and he going to have to play with it taped up a little bit if he even tries to play with it, which I don't think he's going to want to do, because as you know, when you a guard, that shows a sign of weakness, and guys will slap at your hand.
Yeah. It also limits your ball handling too.
Exactly, as you alluded to.
Yeah, you lose your full motion in that wrist.
Yep.
So Yeah, I don't know, man. That's tough. That's tough. And even though
I
Memphis
think
knows how to win, it's a playoff. That's a different beast, man.
Yeah, what you gonna say, Drew?
no, I was just gonna say, that wrist injury looked terrible, but I don't think we should discredit how much back spasms or a sore back, whatever Giannis is dealing with, will impact him, with him being such a physical force who's throwing his body around and into people. Um, it was funny because a play or two after he fell, he actually had one of those plays where he went downhill, drove to the bucket, kind of threw himself into somebody. He scored, but you just saw after the fact he was like kind of gingerly moving around after that, just as much as he was directly after that fall. But to your earlier point about uh, Milwaukee and how they deal with that injury and who's going to be guarding Jimmy Butler, I just think they're better equipped to handle that injury in this series than Memphis is against the Lakers. Chris Middleton can do his best to try to corral Jimmy Butler. Drew Holiday can try. Wesley Matthews,
Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder. So they got some bodies they can try to throw at Jimmy Butler. And then again, you got to weigh it against the Tyler Hero injury and just how much less oxygen that gives that Miami Heat offense to breathe in the half court.
And they need Tyler Hero bad because they've been one of the worst teams in 3-point shooting all season long as well, which was a reverse opposite of what transpired a season ago when they were one of the league's top 3-point shooting teams and got within the game and reaching the NBA Finals. So I get you all's points on the Memphis injury and as well as Milwaukee, with Morant and Giannis, because Milwaukee, let's be real, they do have the easier matchup. They had an easier matchup than what Memphis has. And Memphis really, they need a lot to go right because this is going to be a war for them no matter who's out there. Going up against a Lakers team that's hungry and has also posted the best record, I believe, in the West since the All-Star break and been clicking, on all cylinders for the most part. But want to move on and segue into the announcement of the top 3 finalists for the NBA 7 Individual Performance Awards. TNT is going to reveal the winner of each award during their coverage of this year's playoffs, starting at the top of this week with the Defensive Player of the Year, which was just named prior to this recording. Is Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies, took home that honor over Brook Lopez of the Milwaukee Bucks and Evan Mobley of the Cleveland Cavaliers. The finalist for the NBA's Most Valuable Player Award was also named. Those guys are Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers, and the reigning 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, Jalen Brunson of the Knicks, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Thunder, and Lauri Markkanen of the Jazz are the top 3 finalists for the Most Improved Player Award this season. Jimmy Butler of the Heat, DeMar DeRozan of the Bulls, and De'Aaron Fox of the Kings are also the 3 finalists for the NBA's inaugural Clutch Player of the Year award. Among the top 3 finalists for each award, starting with the Most Valuable Player award, who do you all think should return home with the hardware for all of the honors? I started off myself first. I picked Joel Embiid to win prior to the season. I'm not going away from that pick. I think I made my case be known for him several times on this show. I think he's more deserving of it than anybody. I mean, it's about time someone gives him his flowers. If this ain't the year, I don't know what is. So I'm rolling with Joel Embiid, but I ask you, Drew, who you rolling with for MVP?
Oh man, I feel like you really can't go wrong, man. Whether you want to pick Giannis, Jokic, or Embiid. Now I know people claim voter fatigue with Jokic, and they want to discredit him because of how things played out toward the end of the regular season. But I think I'm in agreement with you, man. If I had to give the award out today, I would actually give Embiid the award with a slight edge over Giannis. Just what he was able to do for Milwaukee, a team that's been battling a lot of injuries this season and was still able to get the number 1 seed
Yeah.
But Embiid is just having a phenomenal season on top of a phenomenal season he had last year as well. Like somehow he's even better, you know. So I give him a nod. I give him a nod.
Joel Embiid all day, baby. That's a given. Obviously, Gabe, I've been on the Joel Embiid bandwagon with you since Zion Williamson messed up my pick.
Oh, you can't feel too bad about that one, man. I didn't mind that pick because I'm gonna tell you something. I was tempted when you made it to go on FanDuel and put in a bet on that because I'd have cashed in real well if he had stayed healthy and won.
Ooh,
I'd have really cashed in. I think he will be the next American-born player to win it at some point. I really believe that if he ever stays healthy.
Yeah, I agree. So since Zion Williamson's body let me down this year, I pivoted towards Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid, what secured it for me was there was a time period where James Harden was hurt, Tyrese Maxey was hurt, Tobias Harris was pretty much, you had to question whether he was on the floor or not, and Joel Embiid guided the Sixers on a winning streak or the winning play on both ends of the floor while those players were out. And need to mind you, when Joel Embiid went up against Joker, he dominated him. He went to work.
Yeah, he did.
He made sure that it was known he is the number one big man in his league, and this was why. So not only did you help your team win and stay top 3 in the Eastern Conference, but you also let the world know on the head-to-head matchup that everybody was looking forward to, Battle of the Big Man. You got to know that I'm the best big man for a reason. And you can't dismiss that. On top of being the number one scorer in the league, being the scoring champion, you can and doing it in the ways that he's done it. Joel Embiid deserved this award. He's deserved it in previous years, but yeah, this is the year he gets his award. This is where he gets his flowers.
I believe so too, and also he's the first big man since Bob McAdoo, since the merger, to average 30 plus or more in back-to-back seasons, and he's the first big man since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who did it 40 years ago, to win back-to-back scoring championships as a center. And that's saying a lot in an era where the game is so heavily predicated on the dominance of the point guard. As our guy Rashad Phillips will say, the hybrid guard who can do it all, who can score as well as create for others. So to see him with his skill set continuously getting better season after season, I can't knock it. And I expected him to come out with an all-time great season. But the fact that he actually kept Philly in the top 3 of the Eastern Conference this year says a lot. And I can't knock you, Drew, for showing some love to Giannis Antetokounmpo as well, because, man, I got a chance to see him in person against the Bulls, where if it wasn't for a few missed free throws, he'd have had a 50-piece. And everybody in the building knew he was going for 50. And just a couple weeks later, he lit up the Wizards for 50. Like, Giannis had a real great season, and I think voter fatigue really affects him more than any of the 3 candidates, because he's a 2-time MVP award winner. Previously opened up the decade with a couple of his own in Milwaukee. And some people just fail to comprehend just how great he truly is and how much he's really improved. We don't give him enough credit for how he's really made strides as a passer out of double teams, and for finding some success as a mid-range shooter, getting into his spots there as well. Like, we know he's a physically dominant player who reigns supreme over others, but to see his game all around transform on the way to winning the championship a couple of seasons ago, it speaks volumes. And I think it's something that definitely deserves a lot of love and appreciation from basketball spectators across the country. But I want to get into the discussion for the 6-man award. You have Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks as a finalist, Malcolm Brogdon of the Boston Celtics, as well as Emmanuel Quickley of the New York Knicks. I thought Norman Powell could have easily been a nominee for this award from the Los Angeles Clippers, if not for being in and out the lineup with injuries. Who are you guys rolling with to take the six-man award? I'll start with you, Josh, on that.
Ooh, I remember the day when I interviewed Bobby and I asked him what was his goal for his career. And this is when he first left the Bulls, got traded to the Wizards, finished out his contract, and signed this big deal with the Knicks. And he said one of his goals was to win Sixth Man of the Year.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
He said he's had
That's
that
cool.
goal. He's had that goal for the longest. Now that he's here, and with the season that he's had, I'm tempted to say, yeah, him. But I'm not. I'm switching over and I'm going to give it to an unsung hero in Emmanuel Quickly. Here's why. Bobby Portis has been hurt and hasn't played and lost a lot of games this year. I think that hurts his chances. Emmanuel Quickly, first off, emerged as a great player that not many people expected to be this good in New York. And for him to be on this roster, helping New York become the 5th seed in the East, which is a seed that in the beginning of the season, not many people expected the Knicks to really be in. And to dominate in such a way where the Knicks were one of the best teams in Eastern Conference moving, especially post All-Star break. He's really helped keep this team afloat, especially when Jalen Brunson wasn't on the floor. I got to tip my hat off to him. Now, obviously, Malcolm Brogdon, you could argue and make a case for him playing on the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference, but to me, Emmanuel Quickly is the unsung hero out of the 3. When you think 6-man, especially beginning of the season, you did not think Emmanuel Quickly was going to be in that list or in that roster. So now that he is well-deserving, I think he's well-deserving of it. I'm going with Emmanuel Quickly of the Knicks.
See, man, I thought we was going to have something in common, man. You started giving your soliloquy on Bobby Portis, man. I actually went with Bobby Portis. Now, he started 22 of the 70 games he played, so I wonder if that will pull him out of the running for that award more so than anything else. But I'm going with Bobby Portis, man. Averaging 14 points, career high in rebounds, I think something like 9.6, 38 double-doubles.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why the Bucks were able to not only stay afloat through all the injuries, but were able to be one of the better teams in the league, best team in the East, home court advantage throughout the Eastern Conference side of the playoffs. So I'm going with Bobby, man. He's just a pro's pro, stays ready. Kind of got that old man at the Rex in the game, but it works, man. And he not only did he provide like just another offensive weapon, but he also brings his hard hat night in and night out. And he's a college snatcher too, man. Like, if we're going to spin this conversation back to the Bulls, that's something else they really need to look into, especially if they're not going to have Pat Bev next year. But I think there's something to be said about a player who actually is in the rotation, being able to be productive, but then also being able to be kind of the enforcer of your team. I know in this day and age, that's not so much of a big thing as it was like in the 90s, but there's some things that he brings that don't show up in the box score.
This has always been one of my favorite awards because to me, it goes to guys who could easily be in starting roles, but they sacrifice for the greater good of the team. And Bobby Portis is a guy that I love dearly and a guy that I got to know before he even played his first NBA game because I did an internship, with his agency at Priority Sports, one of his main agents, and Reggie Brown. So, like, he always been a cool dude and a guy that I always rooted for personally because of his story and where he come from and stuff like that, getting to know him and to see him win, a championship in Milwaukee. That was real cool to see and see everything come full circle, especially after the way things ended in Chicago. And sometimes he ain't always get a good, report here, I think. And sometimes, was unfairly criticized for some things that a lot of people had no clue what was going on. But it's hard for me to go against the president. and that's Malcolm Brogdon of the Boston Celtics. It's hard for me too. This is a guy that could easily start for the Celtics, but when he comes in games, he finishes them. And he's the calm and steady presence that this team needs time and time again, whether it's getting into their sets, facilitating, setting up guys like Marcus Smart for looks, Jaylen Brown for looks, Grant Williams. And oh, by the way, he could get a bucket of his own. And you can't speed him up. You can't slow him down. He's a winning player. And he kept Boston afloat in the East just as much as Bobby Portis did. I really believe that the award was Bobby Portis's to lose until he got hurt. And I don't want to discredit anything that Bobby Portis did because he played a big factor as to why the Bucks were able to stay atop of the Eastern Conference for so long and eventually surpass Boston for the number 1 seed out East. Could have easily been in the starting lineup with the numbers that he was putting up. Like you said, the 38 double-doubles, I believe that's the most by any player off the bench. But I have to go with Malcolm Brogdon. As much as I find it tough to forgive him for taking that Rookie of the Year from Embiid, even though Embiid only played 31 games. Like, if you look at the numbers, it wasn't even close. He's deserving of being a 6-man, in my opinion, this season in Boston. And in my opinion, he's going to be the guy, if they get to the finals and get over the hump, he's going to be the main reason as to why. Because we always have known Boston to need a calming presence at the point guard position. Marcus Smart, as great of a defender as he is, he get helter-skelter sometimes. Malcolm is like the Mariano Rivera to them. He's the closer. And he keeps things, cool, calm, and collected and helps them do what they need to do to win games. And he's been that vet, that steady vet that they've needed through all 82 and more for first-year head coach Joe Mazzulla over there. But I want to get in the most improved. We got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lauri Markkanen, as well as Jalen Brunson up for that award. This is an award that's always tricky. I don't personally feel like SGA should even be in the running for this award. His improvement was expected. It was expected. But who you guys going with, man? I'll start with you, Drew.
This, with all due respect to Jalen Brunson, this is Lauri Markkanen's award. For so many seasons here in Chicago, we wanted to see him play with an edge, see him be more consistent, see him be part of winning basketball, and live up to the billing of being some sort of a approximation of Dirk Nowitzki. I don't know if he's that necessarily, but good God, man. This dude averaged 25.5 points this season, coming off of a season where he just averaged 14.8 with the Cavs. Granted, roles were different, responsibilities are different, expectations are different, but he just looked like a whole different player, especially coming off of the Eurobasket, just playing with a mean streak.
Yeah.
My man had 111 dunks. 111 dunks. His previous career high was 63. Like, he was postering so many people. I think he got Vucevic twice this year.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
45 and ones. He had 28 in his rookie year. That was his previous high. Career high 58.5% on twos. Still shot 39% from three on 7 attempts a game. Like, this is Lauri Markkanen's award. First time All-Star. You got to give it up to him. Kind of bittersweet that it's happened away from Chicago, but I don't think it ever would have happened here in Chicago, given the way that things went. But he's got my vote.
Good Lord, man. It's like always having a conversation of how good people are when they leave Chicago. It's like
that's a tradition unlike any other, no matter the sport.
I swear. It's like you leveling up after breaking up with your ex or something. Like it's wild, man. But as much, I'm not gonna lie, Drew. I wavered on this one. It's tough for me. And as much as I wanted to give it to Lauri Markkanen, I gotta go with Jalen Brunson. And this is why. When Jalen Brunson left the Mavericks for the New York Knicks, $100 plus million deal. The first thing you heard when he signed that deal was, he was overpaid and he can't live up to the contract.
That's true.
He doesn't have what it takes. Well, this year he's shown you that he has what it takes. He should have been an all-star. Obviously his career numbers went up in points. But the biggest thing to me that shows Jalen Brunson's acceleration is the fact that he was able to lead star players. He did not necessarily have that role in Dallas because everybody knew that's Luka Doncic. He's running that show over there. You're just the sidekick. You can argue that with Jalen Brunson coming to the Knicks, this year was Jalen Brunson's team. And Julius Randle went underneath the leadership of Jalen Brunson. And Jalen showed you that I may not be the number one option, but when it comes to closing time in the final minutes of the game, ball's in my hands. The ball is in my court. Watch me do what I do. And he's led the Knicks to victories consistently. And he's never let the Knicks relapse in any way from what we know the Knicks are accustomed to doing. So because it may not always show up in the numbers, but the impact on the court, not just offensively, but defensively, is literally the reason why the Knicks went from mediocrity to stability. And because of that stability, it has led to the Knicks not only being a top 5 team in the East, but being competitive in the first round series with a team that many before the season started had them at least going to the second round of the playoffs and maybe even contenders of the Eastern Conference Finals because of Donovan Mitchell. So to have Jalen Brunson, especially when the Knicks could have really had Donovan Mitchell and didn't pull the plug, knowing that they could have had him, but they settled, so-called quote-unquote settled for Jalen Brunson, he's flipped a lot of heads this year in more ways than one. And for me, obviously Laurie did the same thing, but, winning does have an impact. He's helped the Knicks become contenders versus the laughingstock of the Eastern Conference from which they once were. And that has to be the reason for me. Jalen Brunson is going to get my vote as most improved?
Most improved player, yeah, most improved player.
Yeah, most improved, for sure.
I can't argue against it, especially when he took an offense that was 24th a season ago into a top 5 offense. And I really think he was responsible for Julius Randle's resurgence in becoming an all-star for the second time in 3 seasons there. And just like I talked about with Malcolm Brogdon providing a steady presence for the Celtics, Jalen Brunson did that for the New York Knicks, a team that was in desperate need of a point guard a season ago when Derrick Rose went down, a team that was not only in desperate need of a point guard, but a point guard who was not only a playmaker, but a point guard that could create his own shot and serve as a go-to liaison when things were getting hectic in a half-court game, something that they didn't have 2 years ago in the first round against Atlanta when everything was going through Julius Randle, and they got sent home in 5 games in spite of a hell of a season from Tom Thibodeau and his bunch then in the shortened 2020-2021 campaign. I personally think SGA is winning this award just off of numbers and so forth. I don't believe he should be in it, but I think he's going to win it. It's hard for me to go against Lauri Markkanen, a guy who was asked to play in a corner during the Jim Boylan era, as opposed to operating out of dribble handoffs and running the floor and serving as a ball handling pick and roll. Like Fred Hoiberg really showed you how you can maximize Lauri Markkanen. Jim Boylan didn't take notes of that. And as a result, like Drew said, it couldn't have happened in Chicago because coaching wasn't going to allow it to happen in Chicago. He had to go somewhere else where he could fly. And he flew well. And I think he's only scratched the surface of how great he could be in Utah. But I got to go with Jalen Brunson. I do. And I know you say, Josh, they could have got Donovan Mitchell, but they would have had to give up a lot to get Donovan Mitchell. Draft picks, guys like Quentin Grimes, who have been valuable to the Knicks bench alongside of Jalen Brunson, who has shown that he's worth that money and some.
Mm-hmm.
And while people can say, well, he only got the money because his dad was an assistant coach there, or he only got the money based off of what he did last year in the playoffs. Well, thus far, he's proven to be worth it. And in my opinion, just like I know you believe as well, Josh, he should have been an all-star this season. And when you look at the improvement, he started in all 68 games he played in. He shot 41% from three-point land. He shot 49% from the field. Kept the turnovers at a minimum with only 2.1 per game. All the while being the conductor of the offense. You know, anytime you putting up 24 points and 6 assists a night, and you're asked to be that go-to guy when it's closing time and you rise to the occasion more often than you don't, it deserves to be rewarded. And he has been the most impactful player, especially among newcoming players in their first season. Because everybody in that locker room feeds off of him. And you hear it. It's not a joke. Josh Hart has talked about it. Julius Randle has talked about it. Mitch Robinson has talked about it. So many other guys. And I just feel like it's really his award. It really should be between him and Lowry for most improved player. But at the end of the day, I believe SGA will win. But if I had a vote, I would vote for Jalen. I would give him the narrow edge over Lauri Markkanen, who, in spite of a hell of a season and turning Utah into damn near a play-in team, as opposed to being in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, you know, I still got to go with Jalen. But clutch player of the year, you got Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox. Who are you guys going with now? With me personally, I feel like they might as well just ship the trophy to Sacramento for De'Aaron Fox and just have a ceremony right now. Ask the Orlando Magic fans and Chicago Bulls fans how they feel about them game winners. They'll tell you.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. If Jimmy Butler just could have scored a little more, man, because he played in 4 more games and won 3 more of those games for the Miami Heat, I think he would have a better case. If this award was given out last season, it would have been DeMar DeRozan's to take home, but there's not a whole lot to say about this one, man. De'Aaron Fox, 194 points in the clutch, man. It's ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. The second closest to him was DeRozan at 159. So you just see the gap in between. Now he did play 5 more clutch games than DeRozan too, but Fox took his game to a level that I wasn't aware he could go to. I don't watch a whole lot of Sacramento Kings basketball, but seeing him against the Bulls, it was like eye-opening in terms of the kind of player that he's become this season. It kind of lends itself to the reason why the Kings are in the position they're in. Having earned the third seed in the Western Conference and having taken a game from the Golden State Warriors already in their first round series. So, yeah, man, it's not a whole lot to be said about this one, man. Give it up to De'Aaron Fox.
If I was the Wizards, I'd be mad as heck because De'Aaron Fox is a better version of John Wall. He's John Wall with a jump shot. If John Wall could just make the jump shot, he would still be in Washington right now. And that's what the Wizards expected out of him. And clearly it didn't work. Now, when you look across the court and you're playing against the Kings, you're like, dang, that's John Wall with a jump shot. That could have been us. So I would be highly upset if I was the Wizards to watch the maturation of what John Wall could have been versus the reality of what De'Aaron Fox is now. And De'Aaron Fox, by far, should be taking home this award. They shouldn't even put Jimmy Butler up there because of them nasty dreads he got on. They should have got rid of it. They shouldn't have done him like that.
I get mad every time I see that when they be showing the NBA schedule and they had the photo of him in media day with the dreadlock. Like he really was doing some high level trolling with that.
I swear, like don't even look like himself. Look like he's just straight from Jamaica. Like
right.
Who thinks of that, bro? Like
he had too much time on his hands this offseason.
I swear, man. And just over that alone, this disqualifies for me. But you made a good point about Jimmy Butler, Drew. If he scored more and really became more of a scorer than just being a player, I think not only he would be in a better position, but Miami would have been in a better position as a whole. But this is the Kings' year where you talk about success individually and as a team, man. This is the year for them. They are given the vibes of not exactly what the We Believe Warriors did, but when you talk about success of a team that struggled for so long and then they finally get back on the hump and the rise and do it in such a way where you don't have a superstar coming to your way that you just automatically trade or signed for. They did this from the ground up. And for the most part, we're doing it from the ground up with a lot of young players. Hey, you got to tip your hats off to him, man. De'Aaron Fox rose to the occasion and made sure that it's known that he's the franchise player of this team. And he's living up to the expectations, man. I got that. Kudos to him. Beantown, y'all got a good one. Y'all got a good one. And this is definitely De'Aaron Fox's to take home to the crib, man. I just hope he shares it with John Wall said. This could have been you. But instead, you left it to me. And I thank you so much for doing that because now I get to live what you could have been. So,
well, I'm sure John Wall might take a little bit of credit in that award himself, being a Kentucky point guard that came before De'Aaron Fox in that Calipari tree branch of point guards that extends all the way back to the University of Memphis. So I'm pretty sure he'd take some kudos for that if it was given to him.
You'll tell him to respect your elders.
Right. NBA Coach of the Year, you got Mike Brown of the Sacramento Kings, Mark Daigneault of the Oklahoma City Thunder, Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics. I don't know how you go against Mike Brown. You talked about, Josh, how this Kings team remind you of the We Believe Warriors. They actually kind of remind me of the Warriors in 2012-13 under Mark Jackson, who had made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2007. And they had a young Steph Curry with a young Draymond Green, a veteran such as Andre Iguodala in the mix. Actually, no, he wasn't on that team. He's playing with Denver, but they had David Lee as their veteran. A role sort of similar to what like Harrison Barnes is in. I don't know how you go against Mike Brown, man. Like, to me, he got these dudes to believe. They were the only team in the Western Conference to finish with an above 500 record on the road. That's saying something. And you have so many of these people on Twitter saying, well, if they lose this evening, and just for those who are listening, we're recording on the evening in which the Kings and the Warriors are set to tip off momentarily out in Sacramento. They said, well, if the Kings lose game 2, they're going to go down in 5 games or whatever. Like, they could be, see it a 3-1 series lead or whatever and Golden State. I'm like, y'all really must ain't been watching Sacramento. Like, they done pulled off some incredible wins on the road behind enemy lines. And I think Mike Brown plays a part in that. He actually doing some real coaching, sitting rookies like Keegan Murray and having them learn, but then being willing enough to say, you know what, young fella, I'm going to play you and I'm going to see what you can do. And then when they rise to the occasion, be like, good job. Like, he's actually put in the leg work in Sacramento. I don't know how you go against him. In the end, the longest drought in North American sports history when it comes to postseason droughts, even more credit got to go to Mike Brown, man. First year did a credit.
I don't know how you go against him either, man. First season above 500 since 2005, 2006. First time hosting a first round series since 2003, 2004. Like this team was 14 games above 500. We're in contention to be a 2 seed at one point, fighting for that spot with Memphis. So got to give it up to Mike Brown. I think this award, just like that clutch player award, is kind of sewn up, man.
Anyone that can make Vlade Divac look good in the front office deserves all the awards they can get. So Mike Brown definitely deserves this award, considering Vlade Divac's been there for quite some time and they have never sniffed the playoffs. Yeah, that should be enough within itself. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Mike Brown has revived himself as a head coach. Being able to be one of the first coaches to take LeBron to the finals. And then, after that, it's been kind of, up and down for him. Didn't have the best tenure when he was coaching with Kobe. But, he changed this. He grew from those situations and was put, honestly, in an ideal situation for him to really actually teach and coach young guys that have to prove themselves. And they bought into the system. They bought into his vision and ultimately changed the culture around. And, Mike Brown is going to be really revered for a while over there in Beantown, right, and rightfully so. So kudos to him. And Vlade Divac got to give him a pay raise and an extra dinner or something, man, because ain't no way you go over there, you make the playoffs, and Vlade Divac ain't made the playoffs since he's been in any type of front office role over there. That's nuts.
Yeah, I agree with you. Monty McNair deserves some credit too, former Rockets executive who is now, I believe, in the front office and one of the lead seats that is in Sacramento. He deserves a lot of credit, especially for pulling off that trade that I know he got ridiculed for, trading Halliburton out of Sacramento for Sabonis.
Yeah.
A trade that worked out well for both organizations who were in need of both of those guys. So I give Mike Brown a ton of credit, as well as Monty McNair, who I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the running for the executive of the year for the job they've done this year in Sacramento. But last but not least, rookie of the year, you got Paolo Banchero of the Orlando Magic, Walker Kessler of the Utah Jazz, and Jalen Williams of the Oklahoma City Thunder up for those awards. I don't know how you go against Paolo Banchero. I just don't. Jalen Williams had a hell of a run for it, though. He was on his heels, but it ain't every day you see rookies averaging 20 a game, getting to the free throw line close to 8 times a game, and finding a way to average 20, might I add, despite shooting less than 30% from three-point line, something that I think we all believe is Paulo continues to grow in the league will improve upon.
Yeah, I was trying to find a way to get us to Jalen Williams, man, but because I think he was played a decent part in Oklahoma City having a 16-game turnaround and getting into that play-in and being ahead of schedule, in terms of what it is they want to do and their outlook for going forward. He was not right behind, because that suggests that he was directly behind, but he was second on the team in win shares behind Shea. I think that kind of, speaks volumes about the role that he played. He gets shoot, pass, dribble. That seems like such a simple concept, but not a lot of guys in the NBA. It's a role in the NBA that I think is lacking. Again, if we kind of looking at the Bulls, you can't say that about a lot of guys on that team.
That's
but
true.
Like you said, Gabe, like, you can't go away from Paolo on this one, man. You can't.
Melo 2.0, baby. Carmelo Anthony 2.0. You cannot go against Carmelo Anthony 2.0. The skills speak for itself, and the numbers they go with it. This is gonna be a very bright and special guy, and if he continues to grow, Orlando got a heck of a player, man. They can keep him happy and keep him there. They're gonna be in good hands for quite some time. Because Paulo's the real deal. At the end of the day, he's just a monster. And for what he's been able to do as a rookie, nowadays in today's era of basketball, it's a different level when you compare it to previous eras of basketball and their rookie statuses, and their rookie numbers. It's hard to say you had a rookie playing at this type of level since maybe like a LeBron James, or someone along that line, because of the fact that the game has changed so much and rookies aren't always having the necessary status to, or pressure to perform at that type of level consistently, based on the team and the culture that's being built over there. But yeah, Paulo, different breed, man. To see that brother in person, he was giving the Bulls the business. He was giving the Bulls the business.
He gave a lot of teams the business. He was giving Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum the business too, because I was watching a lot of Celtics and Magic games on League Pass, and it didn't matter where they was playing, whether it was in Orlando or Boston. Orlando had Boston number this season. And that's what let me know, like, you know what? These dudes get a point guard, like legit point guard in the mix, they're going to be scary. And I like Markelle Fultz, don't get me wrong, but like if they had a veteran over there, man, with that front line, because defensively, with Paulo, Mo, Franz Wagner, and Bo, man, don't let Orlando get the top pick, man. Orlando get the top pick, it's over. It's over, man. They could even flip that if they wanted to get a superstar. They really could. Like Orlando's in a very great place, and they ain't been in this type of situation in a long time.
Yeah,
agree, man.
Future's looking good over there, man.
Yeah, very bright, man. Like Walt Disney World bright. Like they could invite Mickey out to the game. Just look at that bright, man.
I mean, Mickey must be that much richer though if they give us Jalen Suggs.
Hey, he might be on the block. I'll never know. It all depends on what what Orlando wants to do, rather, with John Hammond, who, as we know, he's a guy that likes long, wiry players because that's the man who drafted Giannis. Mm-hmm. So it remains to be seen. But I want to ask you guys, with the way things currently stand in the playoffs right now, what opening round series are you looking forward to watching the most based off of what you've seen thus far in the game ones out east and out west? Like I said, we recording on the night when the Warriors and Kings about to tip off in Sacramento. You just had the Sixers take down the Nets to go up 2-0 in that series in the 3 versus 6 matchup out east.
With all due respect to the Warriors and Kings, I think that's probably the most exciting. But I got to go with the Clippers and the Suns, just because what's at stake? Like, one of these teams is about to go home after the first round.
Yeah.
These are two teams that have championship aspirations, and somebody, if not both of these teams, at some point is going to have to look themselves in the face and figure out what they want to do moving forward. I don't know which team is going to be which, but that's just something, the storyline that comes from that one series is really intriguing to me. The direction that those two franchises might go as a result of this very series. I don't know how you can't be interested in seeing how that plays out.
Easy. That's the series right there. Because Paul George may not come back. It's already been reported he's probably not coming back. But what people don't understand is Russell Westbrook, as bad as he was offensively, was the key reason as to why the Clippers won their first game.
Yeah.
That defensive stance that he put on Devin Booker and just constantly being a motor, rebounding, energy, hustling for loose balls, things of that sort. That's what you get from Russ that doesn't go in the stat sheet. And that's what makes the impact that the Clippers desperately need. And by the way, this is why you save Kawhi Leonard. Because Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs, dude, it's not fair. And he showed it. He's still Kawhi Leonard of old. He just get him healthy, get him through the regular season, and let him know it's playoff time. He's going to scorch you. And he scores the Suns for 30+. So with that exciting of a matchup, this is the first time, mind you, that we got a Kawhi Leonard versus Kevin Durant series.
Yep.
Kevin Durant was hurt in the finals when Kawhi was playing against him with the Raptors.
Yep.
So this is your first time getting a star-loaded front court and a star-loaded back court in the same conference. You can't pass up that, man. It doesn't get much better than that.
And on top of that, to add to your point, Josh, game one was the first time that Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant played against one another in 2 years.
Yep.
And it was an affair worth watching if you missed it. I hope you got league pass and can catch it on the replay. Cause man, they was going at it. And you right about Russell Westbrook. He did a lot of things in game one that didn't show up in the stat sheet. And it's a testament to what he pointed at, you know, in the closing minutes of the game. His heart. His heart. And he just let you know, like, hey, I heard the talk. And yeah, I did shoot like 3 for 19 from the field. Couldn't get anything going. But like I always talk about, in the playoffs, rebounding is key. 9 times out of 10, if you go back and look in the box score, the team that won the battles on the boards are the teams that usually ended up winning the games, if not those series. If they're going to control the battle on the glass like that, I like the Clippers' chances. But yeah, that's definitely the matchup to watch in the West. It's a lot of storylines as well. You got 2 former teammates in Westbrook and Durant going toe-to-toe with one another. You got Chris Paul going up against his former franchise, a franchise that he had to take down 2 years ago in his first year with Phoenix beside Devin Booker to get to the NBA Finals. It's a lot on the line. It's a lot on the line. Paul George isn't in the mix for it, but still, like, these teams have history, and it feels like a Western Conference Finals matchup in round one. And this is a series that can easily go 6 or 7 games. And even if it's a 6-game series, it's going to feel like a 7-game series because I can see a lot of these games being decided by 5 points or less. So that is the series to watch in the West. As exciting as you said, Drew, this Golden State Sacramento series will be. In the East, I said it earlier in the show, I think it's New York and Cleveland. That's the main series to watch. And because we expect for Philly to take care of business of Brooklyn. We expect Milwaukee, even in spite of the injury to Giannis, to take care of Miami. So, yeah, those are the 2 matchups that I have personally.
Imagine if Donovan Mitchell comes back and games the Knicks. You know how pissed off Stephen A. gonna be? Oh, man. Oh, man. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, this is the playoffs for – This is a very good playoff, you know, for the first time in some years.
Oh, yeah.
Very well-rounded on the East and the West. So, it's hard to find games that, you know, you're not going to be excited or be at least competitive with. It's going to be very interesting.
For sure. We definitely want you to tune in to it and watch all the action that unfolds across the NBA playoffs in the weeks and months ahead. But for myself, Gabriel Wilkins, my man Josh Hicks, and our guest Drew, who we appreciate for stopping by, Drew Stevens. Make sure to check him out on the Rebuildable podcast with Matt Gentile, all his work at OnTapSports.net, as well as with the Bigs. You got anything you want to plug before we go?
Man, I'll probably be recording a couple more podcasts this week. Matt and I will probably be looking to do a Bull season recap Tuesday, which will be out Wednesday. And then my man Josh and our guys Eugene McIntosh and Terrence Tomlin will probably try to record something on Wednesday that'll be put out Thursday. So just be on the lookout for some podcasts on Wednesday and Thursday, man. Kind of a post-mortem to this Bull season and a look ahead to what's coming up.
For sure. I'll definitely be looking out for that. Make sure you guys look out for it as well. On top of all the great things that we got going on in WARR Media, such as this show, Open Run, At Bad Podcast with Saul Rodriguez and Miles Porter, talking about all the action up north and out south, surrounding the Cubs, White Sox, and more across MLB. So long, everybody.